Space. The most wonderful thing that you could ever imagine. It's just full of unexplored territories, untapped minerals, maybe life sources that we've never seen. And every time I look up into the sky, I can't help but feeling a feeling of grandeur. A feeling that my tiny body is nothing compared of the endless void that hangs above our heads. But one other thing that space has, uninhabitable places, and one of the most unforgiving territories you could ever imagine. Unless you're one of those cute little tardigrades. Now something that I never would have thought to find inside of this vast expanse of empty wasteland is Clive Barker's Hellraiser. Surprisingly, alright, I would have never thought you could find a cenobite, any kind of Lamont configuration, but you would be wrong, says this third issue of the Hellraiser comic book. Now I'm glad to be getting back into this thing. I know a lot of you have been wanting to see more of this stuff, and this is actually going to touch on a character that we've already seen once before in my last Hellraiser video. A Face. A terrible, terrible man who does nothing but swindle people into murdering people for him, to bringing him torturous pain and endless suffering, instead of just doing the right thing and taking him back to his own dimension. Now, like I said, this does take place in space. It actually takes place in the future, and I was extremely surprised by this, alright? It shows these four people sitting on this planet, and it's just basically a barren wasteland, but out in the distance, they are seeing these crystalline structures, these anomalies coming towards them, and a feeling that something may not be quite right here. Now, this introduces four characters named Barry, Felice, Andrea, and a shithead named Ernest. Alright, anybody named Ernest tends to not be the greatest guy, and you will figure out why I'm saying this in just a little bit. But they've been stranded on this planet. Their ship has actually docked down here, and it can no longer move. And as they're seeing these structures ahead of them, they know that they need to make their way towards it. They don't think there is any life on this planet, but as they are looking through these binoculars, they end up kind of seeing the structure of a man. What is it, Barry? A city? I can't tell. It's strange. For Christ's sake, if that's the best you can do, give me the binocs. Shut up, Ernest. Let him look. You see this man, Ernest, reaching over towards Andrea. He's going for a bit of a squeeze, and he's basically made trouble for this whole platoon of people since the day that he signed on board. Okay, then give me something else to look at. You think after all these months, you're still the last person I'd want to get personal with. You've heard the phrase, familiarity breeds contempt, right? And suddenly, Barry looks up at everybody, and he says, wait a minute, I think I saw a man. And suddenly, you're seeing the silhouette of a man way off in the distance, pulling his arm like he's doing something glorious. Another human being? It's too good to be true. It's so far off. It's hard to tell for sure. I think it's human. I can just barely make out the form, and I can't really see its face. And suddenly you see Face the Cenobite up close and personal. He's actually wearing somebody else's face, and I don't know if this is Brian or Maureen from the last video, which I'm guessing not. It's obviously a couple hundred years after Maureen was trying to buy this land from Brian to establish the next Disney World and ended up being initiated into Face's wrath. But he's just standing there, and he's smiling, and you know that he has some kind of plan to go. Suddenly everybody looks towards the sky, and they start seeing these crystalline anomalies coming out of them. They're these red, orange shapes, and they don't really know what to do about them. Look, it's those lights again that we saw from the air. They're coming this way. What are they, Barry? Maybe we should go back inside. And suddenly Ernest points his gun at it, and he's got this grin on his face, and he says, I say we bring him down before they get any closer. Who knows what they are? Some kind of missiles, maybe. And Barry grabs us, alright? He's getting a bit sick of this man's crap, and he's about ready to take him down a peg. Don't be an idiot, Ernest. If they are intelligently guided, we have to show our peaceful intentions unless they strike first. And as they're looking up, these structures are right above their heads. They're floating in midair. There's no kind of like projection going on underneath them. No jets, no wings. They're just floating. They look crystalline, like the city. Could they be intelligent? Well, they're more than just some chance. Aerial phenomenon, I know that. They move slowly, but they made a beeline straight for us. Look how they float there, like they're watching us. And suddenly you see Face getting a little bit closer, and he's actually peeling off his exterior face. And what Face does best is monologuing, alright? This man loves to make these little speeches, and they are good. They are good, I will give him that. Watch is not the word, but it is the concept. My perfect crystalline friends do not look, but they can see. They do not think, but they are filled with wonder. They do not talk, but the discourse between them is beautiful and harmonious. And as it cuts back to these four astronauts, they're all just looking in the sky in disbelief. They've never seen anything like this. This planet was completely barren, and this is kind of the first sign of any sort of life that they could have found. And they eventually just decide that it's too dark, they don't want to chance the dangers of the night, and they all just decide to head back to their ship, with Ernest being the only person that kind of has a problem with this. He actually wants to go check check out this silhouette of a man that he's seen. He wants to make sure it's not going to sneak up on him in the middle of the night. And as they're all headed into their ship to get a good night's rest before they trek for the next day, we get one more nice monologue from Face himself. The flesh is not wanted here. It is not wanted on this perfect ordered world, this Eden of rock and dust. The flesh invaders do not appreciate my friends as I do. They are discordant notes in the music of the world. It is for them the precipice was constructed. It is this world's puzzle. One of them will solve it, and he will bring the will of Leviathan to bear on the others. My friends will not know what to make of the events to follow. They are too perfect to comprehend the ugliness of the flesh. And as Face is talking about these strange structures up in the air, I wasn't quite sure if he meant this entire planet was a Lamont configuration. Now, I know straight up desires and wills can create these puzzle boxes or anything. It can be musical notes, it can be origami puzzles. There's many different configurations, but it's very clear that one of these people is going to set their desires loose, and it's going to unleash the cenobites upon them. Suddenly, we're inside the cabin of this spaceship, but they're all just laying in their bunks sleeping. It cuts to Andrea and Ernest's hand grappling over her mouth, and he's telling her to not make a sound. Now, this is where things start getting a little wild, and it's hard to come across these Hellraiser comic books where they don't come across some very uncomfortable situations. But he's sitting behind her now. You know what to do. It's just like before. Nothing's any different now. And as he's kind of trying to have his way with her, you see Barry's hand grapple from behind, and he grabs him by the hair, and he just starts punching the ever-living hell out of this man. This is nothing that he ever wanted to wake up to, and this is one of his fellow shipmates being mistreated by another. It shows him feeding him the left and the right and the left and the right. When suddenly Felice wakes up, and she has no idea what's going on. All she sees is Barry punching Ernest, and she jumps down from her bunk to stop this. I'm teaching this weasel a lesson. That's what. Teaching him to stay in his own goddamn bunk at night. And Felice, understanding, runs over to Andrea, and she asks her if he did anything to her. Andrea comes out, and she says that he's done this many times before, and that she was just too afraid to say anything. Ernest is a bit of a loose cannon, and while everybody knew that he's been trouble for this group the entire time, they never figured that he would bring himself this low. Felice is just saying to toss him outside. If she sees his face again, he is going to be meeting the dust permanently. And Barry asks Andrea what she wants to do, and she says, feed him. Feed him his balls. And as Barry is holding a gun to the back of Ernest's head, worried that they might actually do what Andrea said, just kind of begs and pleads that they're not actually going to do this. Barry just says, I could live with that. And Ernest, trying to pull a seniority card, says he's gonna have to answer for that. And this pisses Barry off. To who, Ernest? Only 2 other people will know, and they both hate you more than I do. Look, we're stuck here. The ship's grounded. We've got food for a week, maybe. This planet's lifeless, totally. Not so much as a germ in any of the samples we took. You've been nothing but a pain in the ass since you signed aboard. I'm not spending my last week wondering whose food you're stealing and what else you might be doing when I'm not around. And Ernest, looking back with his eye completely shut, at least one of them, he just says, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna shoot me or what? My impulse is to see you run as fast as your legs can carry you. Run, Ernest. Get out of pistol range before I change my mind. And remember, I'm a damn good shot. And Ernest gets up and he starts running across this desolate land, and Barry is just kind of shooting at his feet as he runs as fast as he can. And suddenly you see Face off in the distance, and he sees all of this. My friends cannot comprehend, but I do. I comprehend well the fleshy depravities that have brought us to this point, and I know I have found my instrument. But after this, Barry, Felice, and Andrea are walking across this land, and the crystalline structures above them continue to follow them, and it's starting to get a little weird. They don't know what's happening, they don't know what these alien structures are, and they're starting to get very frustrated. They've been walking for a long time. Admit it, Barry, you goofed. You misjudged the distance. We'll never make the city by nightfall. I don't get it. It couldn't have been more than 20 miles away. We should have been there by now. What difference does it make? We die in one spot or another. Any sign of Ernest? And he looks off in the distance using the binoculars, and he doesn't see anything. He says, no, I don't think we'll be seeing Ernest again. These crystal things are getting on my nerves. They followed us the whole way. I wonder, what would they do if we turned around? Forgot about going to the city. Would they let us go back? And this kind of begs the question whether these things are trying to force them into this crystalline structure ahead of them. If there's something there waiting for them, or if they're just mindless beings up in the sky, just something a part of this planet that for some reason feel drawn to them. We'll go on for another few hours, then make camp. Looks like we're sleeping under the stars tonight. And they find a nice little cave, but Andrea stays outside to look around. Barry and Felice go into this cave to make camp, and Barry's just kind of regretting that they let Andrea stay outside. He says, we shouldn't have let Andrea go off alone. Modesty be damned. Andrea, sound off. Let us know you're out there. And they both listen towards the door, and when they don't hear anything, they know that something has gone terribly wrong. Barry gets up, he grabs his gun, and he heads out. And suddenly we're cutting to a a panel where we see Ernest and Andrea, alright? He's got her held up as captive. What now, Face? What do I do with her? Whatever you like. You braved the precipice. You paid the price. Only an ounce of flesh, and now my bounty is yours. Do what you will with her. Indulge your imagination. And he's actually putting on these hands on top of his hand. Face is very prone to stealing skin and slapping it on his own body. He actually used to be a makeup artist, and one of you viewers actually told me that whole story, so thank you very much. But what he's always done with his victims is basically take their skin and put it over top of him. Now, it's not in like a convincing way that will make you think maybe he's just another human being. It's very haphazardly slapped on top of his body, and it's very, very gross looking, considering it's just a dead face on top of a dead body, and some fresh hand skin on top of some dead hands. Once again, it's kind of fucked up. But suddenly, Ernest and Face hear Barry coming along. Andrea, where are you? Are you alright, Andrea? Pity, now we'll have to kill her quickly before she attracts the attention of the others. Here, I'll do it. And Face holds up this giant hunting knife. Andrea, damn it, say something, Andrea. Oh, Christ. And he sees her dead body on the ground, surrounded by a pool of blood. He's already too late, and he grabs her body and holds her up, and he starts screaming at the sky. Ernest, damn you to hell. Damn you, you'll pay for this, you bastard. I promise it. Let me kill him, Face. Give me the strength and I know I can take him. In a good time, my friend. Now, Face doesn't want to just kill these people. That's too quick for him, alright? He wants to have his fun, and he wants to see other people's minds deteriorate while they're doing this process for him. So obviously, this just isn't an option, alright? He would rather preserve these bodies than to just let them go so easily. And as Felice is crying, and Barry is now digging a giant hole, and these crystals are still standing above them. They're even closer, and there's still no really sign of intelligence, or if they're a part of Face, or if they're just a part of the planet. And Felice says something very interesting. What will happen to her body? I mean, will it even decompose here? There's no life to break it down, to make something new out of it. It's all just a big waste, isn't it? There isn't even any kind of cycle to make it all make sense. We don't know that. Maybe we'll make it to the city. And Felice looks incredibly enraged. The city. We don't even know that it is a city. And what are those damn things always there, hanging on every move we make? And she pulls her gun and she starts shooting at them. Go away. Leave us alone. Let us die in peace, damn it. And Barry is kind of worried about what this will do. He doesn't know if these things are unintelligent or if they'll start attacking back, and he grabs the gun. He says, Felice, stop it. Put the gun away. And she darts off into the distance. She starts running, and Barry is just calling her name, telling her to come back. Obviously, this isn't safe. They have Ernest out there, and he's already killed one of their own. And suddenly, she trips on the ground, and she's just bawling her eyes out, and we get another monologue by the man that is Face. Ernest has agreed to make an additional payment. He wants to handle this one on his own, and I think I'll let him. It's time to let him reach the precipice. And now it shows Barry and Felice completely surrounded by these crystal structures. They've appeared just about out of nowhere, alright? These giant walls surround them, and they're just getting even more enraged. Felice says, oh great, that's just what we need. My god, I've never even seen anything like it. Well, that's that. We're not getting over the spires, and from the looks of them, there isn't any reason why we should want to. I'm looking at a very good reason. Ernest, and he's guzzling water like he's got a swimming pool full of this stuff. I see him, and now he's waving. We're losing light. It'd be crazy to start across this late in the day. Tomorrow, we go after that son of a bitch. And Felice and Barry make a camp. They kind of huddle together. They're all alone on this empty world, and at this point, they don't really know what to do. Life doesn't just spring from nowhere, Barry, and it doesn't just dry up and blow away when an organism dies. If those crystal things are somehow alive, or if there's an intelligent life controlling them, then there should be some evidence in the ecology, microorganisms, some kind of food chain. And Barry acknowledges this, and he just kind of says, you know, this is one hell of an alien planet. He doesn't really have any answers for her, and he doesn't necessarily know how to comfort her either. But he gets up and he says, I have to take a leak. And obviously Felice is a little bit scared to be left alone, and she just says, what happened to modesty be damned? And he says, it's an old habit. He basically can't be in front of her. But in this case, you'd think they want to stick together in a tight-knit group and never separate, alright? It's obvious that Ernest is out here gunning for their lives one by one. Yeah, we'll be quick about it. That's when he got Andrea, you know. And Felice starts hearing these weird noises out in the distance. And she gets up to go look for him, and when she comes around the corner, she comes across this spiky set of rocks. And what is on top of it? is Barry's body. But she doesn't really say anything. She doesn't let out a scream. Basically all she does is open her mouth in surprise, and suddenly Ernest comes around from the corner and he grabs her from behind. Felice grabs him by the face, and she actually digs her claws into it and tries to rip as hard as she possibly can. And she leaps off. She starts climbing these rocks way far away, and Face is starting to get annoyed with Ernest. Well, you're going to just sit there? Aren't you going after her? She ripped my face! Yes, exquisite, isn't it? But you can't let them divert you from your mission. And Ernest is starting to get pissed. And in pain, he's not just her big man anymore, and he just wants to sit down and relax and let this pain fade away. Damn it, I'm through fooling around doing everything your way. I'm taking that bitch out. Ernest, please try to rise above your character. Try to show some style. And he says, shut up, Face. And he pulls his gun and he shoots the ground below Felice. And it actually makes everything under her tumble down, and she has basically just lost her life. She falls to the ground to her death, and Face is not happy at all about this. He says, oh Ernest, now you've done it. And he grabs him by the throat, and Ernest knows that he's now fucked up. It was an accident, Face. I didn't mean to hit it. I was aiming for the woman, and you know that. Nonetheless, you've destroyed one of the perfect beings of this beautiful, fleshless world. And do you know the irony of it, Ernest? You could have been one of those beings, just as your friends will be, now that their souls have been freed of the flesh. Yes, they will be back, Ernest, but not you. Not as something so pure and perfect. And you start seeing all these different cenobites coming out, alright? They have their torture weapons. They're ready to tear this man apart. This man who could have kept his deal with Face has now sullied the whole thing and will feel the full wrath of hell. We have a chamber in hell for the likes of you. We cenobites like our pets, the same as you do, but ours are more complex. And you see this bigger cenobite coming out with something in his arms, and it's just this ravaged being with a melted face, arms that look like they don't really work, and the artwork for this is very freaky, very uncomfortable, and a little bit disturbing. Face, no! Give me another chance, please! Being a pet isn't so bad. A little painful during the reconstruction, and you'll never feel quite like yourself again, but we'll be so close. It could be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. And this is the end of the story. Basically, everybody dies. Nobody really gets justice at all. I mean, Ernest gets what's coming to him, but at the same time, nothing good ever happened to Barry, Felice, or Andrea. And the whole story is just a story of pain, of suffering, of loneliness out in the vast wasteland of space itself. Now, when I think about these people reconstructing his body, and how Face actually mentions that he's never gonna quite feel like himself, it makes me think of the character Reek from Game of Thrones, and just how messed up that whole storyline was. Now, while we can't feel bad for Ernest because he was just the epitome of a terrible, putrid person, and he deserves every little bit of it, it just kind of reminds you what these creatures can do to you if you mess up, folly their plans, and just how bad things can go wrong with making a deal with the cenobites. So everybody, that was it. We got to see a little bit of Hellraiser in space, and I hope some of you Clive Barker fans are happy. I'm going to keep on continuing different Clive Barker comic work, and sorry about the gaps. I really appreciate you guys. You guys really bolstered my channel with that first Crusader video, and I want to make sure you guys get some of what you want in between of all these other great stories. Now, I have some other stuff, such as Son of Celluloid, and I would love to get through that. If you haven't read that and you're a Clive Barker fan, make sure you do. I'm actually thinking that might be the Halloween special, but we will see. But overall, I give this story a 7 out of 10. I give a lot of stories that, but that's just because this didn't really blow my mind in any way, but it was an interesting read. It was kind of fun to see Hellraiser out in space, but the contents in it were pretty dark, and not usually the types of things that I do read. But like I said, these comics hold some incredibly dark situations. The second book has some things that are just, I don't even think I could really do a YouTube video on, but I guess we'll see. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy, please like or comment or even subscribe if you're a newcomer. Tell me some of your favorite stories. What's your favorite video that I've done yet? I've been really interested to know that. And one more question before we all go. What is the ideal time that you usually watch YouTube videos? Just so I can kind of structure my upload times around that. But yes, everybody, thanks so much for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you on the next episode of From the Heart.